What's up, Dilio, coming to you live. Thank you for coming to this video. This video, it's my review, and I don't really do album reviews on this channel, but because this one really resonated with me in a positive way, I thought I'd share my thoughts about it and also hear your thoughts about it as well. Casablaco, which I was kind of misreading as Casablanca. Marsha Ambrosius, if you know me, you know I'm a fan of Marsha Ambrosius. I like her music, I like her singing style. And this album is a little bit different. If you want the TLDR version of it, it's definitely a winner because this is an album I've been able to let play all the way through and not skip tracks. This is definitely a listening album because the overall theme and tone and flavors are all very similar to it. When I first heard the single that came out before this, I was a little kind of like, okay, it's kind of like kind of going this jazz route, okay, and I wasn't too interested in it, you know, because if you know me or if you discovered Marsha like I did, it was more on a neo soul vibe. But in this album, she doesn't really depart too much from neo soul. It's actually full on neo soul, because in neo soul music, oftentimes what we try to do is we try to kind of simulate a lot of live music in real time. There are a lot of good titles on here. Music Out of My Mind was really cool. And the first listen to it, when you listen to it, a lot of stuff is like coming at you. There's a lot of complicated things going on, which is interesting because from what it seems like, a lot of people want things to be more simple, a lot less going on in the track, which seems to be the trend. But this one has so much going on at the same time, from the harmonies to the orchestra in the background. And a lot of things kind of get past you. It's kind of like you're just sort of just kind of along for the ride, but you're like, hey, this is a cool ride, but there's a lot going on. It's like being in a place for the first time, and it's very well decorated, but you don't notice the emergency exit sign because you're so like taking in everything. But then the second time, like, okay, oh wow, I caught this, I caught that. And I think it was a really cool experience to listen to it. And again, you catch more things. And I could see this translating very well to a live performance because there's a lot of live elements of it with the drums, with the orchestra. You know, it really makes you think, okay, this could be on a big stage. And I could tell that there's a lot of money spent on this album. One, for the samples, the clearing the samples. Two, the references. And I'm thinking to myself, how are you getting away with referencing so many major songs that are out and so many samples? You know, these samples and these references and all this stuff costs money. And so I'm like, man, they really spent some money on this project, which might explain why it's 11 songs. That's not a very long album. And once again, it goes against what I see as the general rule of having a lot of songs on an album. It just breaks the rules. You know, I could think of didn't Chris Brown like have like an album out with like 40 songs or something like that? I may be remembering it wrong. You can let me know in the comments below. But definitely you could tell that there's a lot of money spent on this album. Great production team. It was just a great listening experience. The references, like I'm hearing her do the harmonies from like a Bilal intro, the Stevie Wonder references. She even references her own music. There's a lot of cool soulful remixes to classic songs that we know. And I like that. That's fun. It almost seems unfair. I mean, because you have the budget now. You're at this level now where you have the budget to reference so many things, so much music. But it's definitely a wonderful listening experience. It's great to ride to. You know, I was out riding and, you know, I let it play and I'm like, okay, let's roll it back and just let it ride. Cause it's definitely a riding album. This is a good traveling album. If you gotta drive a long distance or something like that, put this on and you are rolling for a minute. You're good to go. So it really does reference a lot, and it's very heavy on that. Like if I could come up with a critique on this album, because it's very difficult to critique this album in a negative way, and it sort of heavily relies on the nostalgia because of the jazz, has that classical jazz. And I like how jazz is kind of being brought to the forefront. Don't get me wrong about that. I like that. I don't hear jazz as much as I used to, but jazz, I was listening to some of the samples that was sourced on this album that was originally sourcing a lot of hip hop records, and a lot of hip hop records were sampling jazz music. So it's like you can't have hip hop without jazz. You can't have hip hop without funk. So there's so many layers to it, and then we get underneath it. But I think it really leans heavy on that. If I could manufacture a critique on that, it sort of is like, hey, this is like a DJ album. Like, I'm going to remix everything on top of everything. And it's fun, but if I could come up with a critique, I think it relies so heavily on that it's like, okay, where are we going next? Because all we really did was really reminisce. We sung new stuff, we created new music, but all we did musically is sort of reminisce on the past, right? And I think that reminiscing on the past feels good. I think it's fun. It's an easy win because you're like, hey, you remember that? Hey, I remember that too. Yeah, And I don't know if Marsha needed to do that, because I think she's already relevant as an R&B artist and singer. But it does lean on that. But it's fun. I enjoyed it. But that's, like I said, if I could like try to find a critique for this project, I think it just heavily leans on nostalgia. It heavily leans on kind of like music you already know, harmonies. But like I said, it sounds good. It feels good. It definitely feels good. But I think it's a great combination of all those things coming together. I mean, they spent some money on this project, and it's good. It's classic. I wish it was more of a mainstream thing. Like, I wish more people were talking about it. But I'm biased because I am a fan of her music. Starting from the Floor Tree, I've seen her perform live. I wanted to produce music for her. So Marsha, if you're seeing this, I got beats, and it's a fun project, and it took a moment to grow on me. Like, the first listen, I was like, okay, that's cool. Oh, okay, that's cool. Oh, that's cool. I remember that sample. It was like, okay, a lot of nostalgia there. Marsha singing how she sing. We know she sing how she sing. It's dope. I enjoy it. And but if I could critique anything, I think that it just relies really heavily on nostalgia. It's like, okay, where are we going from here? Because everybody, that's just the only critique. But it's not like it's not a deal-breaking critique. I think it's really cool. So with that being said, let me know what you think. Did you listen to this album? Did you like it? What'd you think about it? I'm Delio. You're watching Delio T2K. Subscribe for more right here, DelioT2K.com.